Good afternoon. We have today with us Paul Young and Old, friend of us, and Pippa Coom. Both of them are candidates for Entrust, the election for which will be held from 10th October till 25th of October. But it's very important that those who are eligible to vote cast their vote, because according to Pippa and Paul, there are issues concerning consumers of Entrust. To talk about it, let's start with Paul. Paul, welcome. You're an old friend. It's been a while since we had you in our office. Tell us about your take on Entrust and what are your concerns?
Hello everybody, my name is Paul Yang. Namaste, Sashiriyaka. Long time no see. This time it's great pleasure join the team, which is more for you, better for Auckland, for the coming soon the Entrust election.
Right.
And I was the former Auckland councillor and also the DHB board member before. And I think that's very important, not only myself, all the resident in Auckland, and because the election for the 5 members, and what I see in last 30 years, we don't have an Asian representative there. So I think this city, Auckland City where we live, is diverse. We need to have a different voice. No matter I get elected or not, everybody need to go out for voting and show your voice, not only in the elections. The cities belong to us.
When you say there hasn't been any Asian in the past 30 years, do you think it's because there have been no candidates, or people have contested and lost, or they have lost interest?
I think the most important, that's the reason I want to stand up, the reasons during this election, because even myself, I don't have lots of information before for the Entrust. And also, before the election, we only see is give every household business for the dividends. But all the dividends are actually the worth from the ships back from our own pocket. So the most important, how to lower the power rate, because the cost of living for everybody is struggle.
Right.
So even the electric is part of the daily spending. So we need to listen and concern the household how to make the bill lower or acceptable. Secondly, everybody know like a solar panel and lots of the solar energy and from overseas, particularly like Australia, in Asia, in China, they are very popular and very useful.
Right.
But unfortunately in New Zealand, we lose like just start. But when we want to involve, we see the distribution and lots of things actually still back to 20, 30 years.
Right.
So we actually need a new leadership, new leader team to lead in the electric Entrust and lead in the Auckland, the right place, right directions.
Pippa, what's your take on this? How do you see Entrust, the way it functions, the way elections are held, and the way forward for the organization?
Well, thank you for having me on today. Entrust is a bit of a curious organisation because it was set up in the 90s as part of the electricity reforms, and a lot of people don't actually know that there is an Entrust, and it is a community trust.
Yes.
Because it has been run in a way that's been quite invisible to most people, and everyone really enjoys getting the dividend every year. Like we've just had the 300.
You all like some money coming back.
Yes, and that's been paid to everybody who's got a power account in the Entrust district, which is, a huge area of 365,000 homes across Auckland. So people like the dividend, but they don't really know about the fact that they have 5 trustees who are the owners of the owner of Vector, essentially, that belongs to us.
Yep.
Because the dividend is coming from our ownership in Vector, which is the lines company, and Entrust owns 75.1% of Vector. And so it can, I can totally understand that it seems like a very boring topic, about lines companies, about shares and dividends, but actually there's a lot to be interested in, because where our energy comes from and how we're going to electrify, how we're going to decarbonise is a really, I think it's a very interesting topic. And also, what can we be doing with this ownership of Vector? It's almost worth $3 billion. That's That's a huge asset
Absolutely.
that Aucklanders own, and how do we own it in the best interests of the community? And at the moment, what we think is that really the 5 current trustees, the incumbents, who have held control for the whole time there has been a community trust, 30 years, it's been one team that have controlled it. And, it's not surprising that their vision has got stale, that, they're not being innovative, and they're not really setting a direction that we think is sustainable. So we feel that there's an opportunity here with fresh leadership to do something quite different.
So if you say that change is required and that the change is felt, why isn't it happening?
Well, partly is what Paul mentioned, is that it's very hard to vote in this election. I mean, not so much hard in that you have to post it, which we know for a lot of people.
It never reaches if you post.
Yeah, and probably if you're under 40, you've never, it's like you probably haven't
You don't
really
know what's
posted a letter.
You can see the voting rate, only 9.5%.
Yeah.
That's something wrong there, because only less one of the Aucklander go out for voting. And that's related to our household. There must have something
Yeah.
tricky or something wrong there. So that's reason need to improve, or with the new leadership, we have to do something.
No, if you say less than 10% of people are voting,
Yes,
it's probably because they don't even know that there is a voting system.
that's right.
And Pippa earlier was mentioning about body corporates, about one person in a household in whose name the power bill comes is the person eligible to vote. What happens if it's a rented accommodation? How does that process work? Does it mean that a person who is in a rented accommodation doesn't have the right to vote? Then you were mentioning about in body corporates, there's a collective voting, something to that effect.
So the way the voting works, that if your name is on the power account
Yeah.
in the Entrust district, you get a voting paper. So that can be quite different depending on the household. So if you're renting, the person who holds the power account might be the landlord who
Yeah.
doesn't live there.
Yeah.
So you don't then get to vote. It also might be somebody who previously lived there and has moved on, and they're taking the dividend, but they're not telling you that they can vote as well. And what happens in apartments, if there are separate power accounts, you all get to vote. But if it's just held by the body corporate, sometimes there might just be one power account.
Whereas
then
15 people may be living there,
There might
15
be
families.
100 people, and they get one vote. So that's another sort of reason that the turnout's not very high.
Tell me, Pippa, sorry for the interruption. Do the elections to Entrust, do they come under the Electoral Act?
Well, that's an interesting point, because it's actually a private election in that it comes under the deed of the trust deed. So the trustees set the rules. So the current trustees, they have decided that it's only a 2-week voting period.
But isn't it a public entity?
Well, they control the rules though. So unless the owners of Entrust, which is all of us,
Yeah.
change the leadership and ask the leadership to have more transparent voting and more accountability, which is what we want to do, the rules won't change. So at the moment, it's completely within their power to have made the vote electronic, but they haven't done it.
But, okay, it seems to me that those who are interested in
Yeah.
Entrust come once in 3 years
Yeah.
when the voting time comes, but you do not pursue your goal of changing the rules during the 3 years.
No. And yeah, there's no incentive. If you're an incumbent, and several of the incumbents are taking an income of up to $200,000 a year
Yeah.
for their role on Entrust and being on the board of directors of Vector.
Is that what they get? The
yeah.
5 people?
Not all of
None
them.
of them.
There's 2 that have been put onto the Vector board. So we as a team would say that actually we're going to get the right people onto the Vector board. We won't just put ourselves on there
That's right.
to be able to take the extra money, which is, the directors on Vector are getting a minimum of $100,000 a year.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money,
That's a lot,
and then they might be
yeah.
on committees. So, you're looking at quite a substantial amount, and if you're earning that and you can guarantee that people are not going to, vote, and will keep you there, then that's kind of an incentive, isn't it? Not to really do much about changing things.
So what you're saying is that people are happy with $350 or $360 they get every year, but they're quite unaware of hundreds of other $1,000 going elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's really important to emphasise that we understand that the dividend is it means a lot to people. You get this.
It takes care of half a bill maybe.
Yes, for some people, but if you're like struggling, you get this and you think that it's Entrust is saying this is a windfall. It's not a windfall at all.
Yeah.
You have paid for it. It's not an unexpected payment. So you are paying high power bills all year, and then you get this $350. What we're saying is, let's look at how you can actually lower power bills, put more in your pocket all year round. And there are absolutely ways that we can lower power bills and put more in people's pocket, rather than just saying it's all on the dividend. And I guess the incumbents, they can advertise the dividend and say that it's them, and people think, oh, that's the team that gives me the money. And it's a very compelling argument, isn't it, really?
So what you're saying is that while there are chances for the power bill to be reduced so that the burden on the consumer is lessened, you also say that there is a need for a change in the whole gamut of things with Entrust.
Yes.
And that has not been pursued for 30 years.
And most important, it's not only the salary stuff. We can put it on side. The most important is all the household, how we pay the bill is going up, going down, and where's money spending, how to do the infrastructure. For example, outside of Entrust, outside of Vector, like north of Auckland or very west of the Auckland, they actually have other power company. What they're doing, they give you probably 80 hours free power hours you can choose in. They actually draw down. So they give the benefit directly to the household. It's not like just I give you 350 because all the money actually from your pocket, right? But the people doesn't know because let's less than the education. Even the election, if we compare the central government, local government, people doesn't know. Even if you say, where's my voting paper? You don't have time to apply the voting paper, and because very short time, the election gone.
Right.
So that's the reason something wrong. So first time when Pippa the team approached me, I said 9.5%. You cannot fight in the world.
This is your first election for Entrust, Paul?
That's my first time.
So you have been a people's representative for quite some time, and people know you. I think you should pursue this cause, and because you got to put out facts to people, because people are not aware of what Entrust is and what are the issues and how it can be improved for the benefit of the people.
That's right. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what we're interested is as many people getting better benefits through their membership of Entrust as possible, isn't it? That's the thing. So if you say that all is not well in the way Entrust functions, I think you should take it to the people so that the people understand what the issues are.
And that's the reason
I think Pippa has very candidly explained. I'm sure we should take this further. What other issues are there? Any other issues?
There's actually quite a few issues in that one of them is undergrounding, which you know that we have the lines in the street, the lines, power poles.
Yeah.
And for a lot of suburbs, that's quite a eyesore, but it's also a resilience issue, because if there's a storm and your power gets cut because the poles come down. And at the moment,
they're not taking it underground.
They're undergrounding, but that undergrounding's happening incredibly slowly, and we're finding that it's only really going into wealthy areas are getting the benefits of undergrounding. And at the current rate, I've heard it mentioned that it might take up to 2,000 years to complete the undergrounding at Auckland. So, I mean, that's not all within the control of the trustees, because it's very expensive, but it's how you target it. And what we are saying is that we will do that equitably. So we'll look at where we can leverage renewals and get undergrounding done. And it's also about the resilience of communities. So, our main policy push is really around rolling out solar and batteries. And if we can put those onto community centres, marae, onto churches, you've got hospitals,
Yeah,
you've got an
shopping mall.
amazing power source, not only for cheaper bills, but also for that
How do we
resilience.
compare ourselves with, say, something like Dublin? In terms, do they have some such scheme where, with the public dividend scheme?
Yeah. I don't know, well, I think our energy reforms were kind of quite, I don't know any other place that have done energy reforms quite like New Zealand in the 90s. This was the Bradford
Is it
reforms.
good or bad?
Well, what we're seeing is that a lot of it is bad. Like, recently we've had the issues with the big price spikes because the dams have been getting very low.
Yeah.
So we do have a lot of renewables, and that's where our energy is coming from. But also we don't have enough incentives to invest in solar energy because of the way the market's set up.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people would say that those energy reforms from the 90s need to be reviewed. And, our role on Entrust is that we can advocate for changes to regulations that are needed, which is what we want to do as well.
Yeah. We've come almost to the end of the session. Paul, what would you like to say as you conclude, and then we will follow it up with Pippa?
Okay, I want every Auckland, particular our Asian community migrant, to engage the local. The power, no matter power, water, rate, it all relate to us. So all the election, we need to engage. If we don't vote, there's no voice. If we don't vote, there will be no improvement. If we don't vote, the city will not getting better. If the city not getting better, our next generation not getting better. So with this election, I will highly recommend and ask all the HR people go out for voting. I really appreciate, and actually this is my first time in last 13 years. This is my 9th election and first time go outside the eastern suburb. So I really appreciate this opportunity. So I really want the people go out for voting, not only vote myself, Paul Young, and also vote my team. More for you, better for Auckland.
Thank you. People. You and I belong to East Auckland, so we are from the same,
belong to the
same community.
Auckland City. Yeah, I love
Pippa?
Thank you. Yes, I think it's really worthwhile people being interested in what they own, because this is our community trust. So we hope that through this election people will take an interest in what is the possibility of owning such a big stake in Vector, and what we can do if the trust is returned to the community. And I'm really pleased to be standing with a team of passionate Aucklanders. We do come from all different political backgrounds. We're an independent team. And I think whatever your politics are, you can't help but agree that it's just not good for democracy to have just one team in control for such a long time. We need to, mix it up, and that's good for our democracy as well. So, having only 9.5% of people voting last time, it was an all-time low.
It must be, and it must be the only election where it's such a poor turnout.
Yeah, terribly low. So we really hope that we've got some policies that are really interesting and exciting. So we hope that people will take a look and vote. So thank you for having us on. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Pippa, and you're very welcome. Next time, please come to us much earlier so that we can promote you more. But we will certainly carry your message across to our communities and let them decide what they want to do.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure, Paul, after a long time. At least Entrust has brought you to our office. Pippa, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah.
And please do visit again. And thank you very much for being with us this afternoon.